Welcome to Manager, the podcast built on the idea that managers learn best from other managers. I'm Kamaria Scott, creator of Manager Momentum and your host. In each episode, I chat with people leaders about what it's really like to support teams, achieve results, and grow in an increasingly complex role. This is your place to hear how managers handle challenges and what's actually working for them in the real world. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Manager podcast. Normally, when we talk about people leadership, you get it from the HR perspective. So there's a lot of culture, there's a lot of feedback, there's a lot of just how do we make sure everyone feels valued and seen on the team. But there's another really important part of people leadership, and that's the results part of what we do, making sure that whatever our team is assigned to do, it's actually getting done and helping the organization move forward. For the next few episodes, we're going to talk less about some of the more common things and get into what I like to call my results pillar, where we focus more on execution and how people leaders help their teams to be really successful. So I am super excited for today's guest. I met her through a wonderful organization called Women on the Rise, and I knew she was someone that you all need to get to know as well because she is the most amazing project manager I have ever met. Today, you're going to have the pleasure of meeting Michele Badie. Michele, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite and I'm excited to share.
Lovely. So I always get started with just having people tell us a little bit about themselves, and then we'll jump into your experience in project management.
Oh, for sure. Thank you. I am a PMP Certified Program Manager. I work in legal services. I've had experience in financial services and nonprofit industries. My management experience includes for-profit higher education and also retail as well.
Love it. So, okay, I just want to jump in because I know when I started leading a team, I thought about all of the touchy-feely things that come with leading. Like, did you have your one-on-ones? And do you know your team? And are you recognizing? But then as I got to more middle management, there were things my team were assigned to do. And I found myself almost becoming the de facto project manager. When did you first realize that managing projects was actually a part of leading teams as well?
When you understand the depth of accountability, when you're being held accountable for the results, you realize that you might need to add some tools to your professional development toolkit that includes project management skills, from soft skills to hard skills or tactical skills. So it's just understanding the level of accountability and how you want to show up in your role. Do you want to meet expectations or do you want to exceed expectations? So in doing that, you need to really tap into your project management skill sets that can help you accomplish that.
Yes, that reminds me of, like you said, don't want to exceed in my role. I found myself in an organization and I had a strategic objective. They were like, we're going to have the year of the manager. I was like, okay, sure. What does that even mean? But once I figured it out, and that was my team's responsibility, I felt like I became the de facto project manager and I had to get some of those skills under my belt to make sure things succeeded. So, can you tell us, just really high level, what is project management and really what are some of those skills that go into successfully executing a project?
So, as project managers, our focus is execution, getting the project done on time and budget without risk, without scope creep. We are the ones that make sure that sustained collaboration from leadership is executed according to vision and scope.
That's really amazing. And so, is that different for someone who, because you are a formal project manager, you are official, but a lot of our people leaders.
I'm, listen, a stay at home mom is a project manager. I just have my credential. Yes, I am a project management, but I'm a certified project manager. But there's a lot of project management professionals without the certifications with years of experience. I think that's a myth where
Yeah.
people limit themselves. I'm not a project manager because I'm not certified. That does not mean that you're not a project manager. I am just one that has chosen to get my PMP certification.
I love that you said that because a lot of leaders don't actually see themselves as project managers. In a
Yeah.
larger organization, so I've worked in organizations that were 300 employees, and I've worked for organizations that have 700,000 employees. And for those
Mhm.
projects, I had a project manager assigned who helped guide us. She was a godsend. But in my former companies that were a lot smaller, they did not have a project manager that you could sort of tap on, and you had to figure out on your own how to manage the projects for your team.
For people, it's a luxury. They don't have the budget. It's a budget luxury to have a project manager. Some people don't realize that. Just based on the other organizations you work with, that's a part of their organizational structure. It's a need, right? But for some, it's a luxury, meaning we can budget for it, or someone left their role, or something happened, and then that allocation of funds can go toward that role or expand someone's role to compensate them for taking on the extra responsibility. But sometimes that's not the case.
No, a lot of times that's not the case, especially in smaller organizations. If I am acting as my own project manager, as a lot of us might be, I want to start diving into some skills that would help us. Project management is keeping the project moving on time, on budget, minimizing risk, and within scope. For all of my managers listening, that's probably a lot of what we do. How do you do that though? So if you could give us maybe some tips or what we can do to think about how we actually track the progress and accountability of the project or our team without overwhelming them or ourselves.
One thing that we must recognize when tracking our projects is the importance of soft skills, collaboration, active listening, our communication, how we communicate, observation. Because when we're tracking our data, and for many of us, we're also utilizing AI related tools that help us track the data. But we also want to make sure that when we're having these conversations, to make sure we're tracking the right data, and every data line or item, data point is being accounted for the tracking purposes. You want to make sure that you're listening to people. You want to make sure that people trust you in order to share the information, good, bad, and different. And we present it as all learning, as lessons learned. We're in this together. I'm a huge component of promoting a collaboration mindset when interacting with people, to set the tone that people can communicate with you, right? Because sometimes if they're going to deliver information that's not potentially, could be potentially viewed as unfavorable, you want to make sure that you're a safe place to land as a project manager for that individual, for that leader, to share that information, that together you're going to curate a response that is accurate, but also not slandering to them, right? Not putting them in a shameful position. I really believe that we need to remember that we're dealing with people.
Yeah.
People interact well with people that they feel they can trust, people that they communicate with well, people that makes them feel seen, and vice versa. And I'm also a big advocate of calling a thing. If there's uneasiness being sensed, let's address that. What does that look like? What does that mean? And be comfortable with having the uncomfortable conversation. So let me tie this back to the data. This makes sure, like I just previously shared, I just want to reiterate it. You can confirm your data points, right? And then that leaves room for ideas to be added that can be a resolution for data points that might need extra support or resolution. It also helps to make sure that when the reporting is done based on the data, that conversation that could be uncomfortable to have is one that people are going to show up to the meeting to have, right? They're not going to ghost you. They're going to be willing to share that conversation. They're going to be willing to identify if a budget needs to be reassessed, as the right stakeholder in the room. And as a project manager, I also perceive that we need to be comfortable being the flexible one in our communication style when collecting data. Yes, follow the company standard and the expectation, but sometimes instead of being in a group chat, you might need to have a one-on-one chat. So knowing when to have that conversation and your approach to collecting the data, assessing the data, and the delivery of the data.
This is my life. I really appreciate that response because for me, it validates that even in project management that can kind of seem very objective and very procedural and structured, I feel like what I hear you saying is that relationship building and relationship management is just as important of a part as project management and is related to, like, you can't have a conversation about data if someone is not even willing to listen to what you're saying. And so, project manager in your role, you're still thinking about the relationship aspect of the people who are working together The difference between your role today and where you might have been in the past is that the people you are managing and helping to get through a project may not necessarily be your direct reports, but as a people leader, they are. Even when I'm thinking about the deliverables of my project, I still have to start from a place of, have I established the right relationship with everyone around me that's going to let me effectively sort of nurture them or get them through the project to even begin with?
We are the champions of a project. We are the accountability. We make sure we're the champions of success for a project, right? We want to make sure that whoever looks at your Jira board or Trello board, that whichever stakeholder looks at that, they get a clear picture of what's going on with that project. They can see every connector, how it makes sense, the process flow, the communication flow, the delivery date, the trajectory to the delivery date, that it is all well thought out. It's my responsibility to ensure that everyone shows up well on that board. Everyone shows up
Mm.
well that's listed on that project plan, that you are represented well because your work is being captured accurately and it's thorough, not only from completion rate to delivery date, but also when your work is archived. Anyone that goes back to that, they see how concise that stakeholder was, that team member was in executing their speed,
Yeah.
their part.
How
Whether it's
efficiently they got it
large,
done.
yeah, even if it's a minimal contribution, or even if it's a very substantial contribution. It's all a contribution to the end goal. So that is something that we do as project and program managers. We ensure that the execution remains focused and well documented, thorough, dependencies, risk. I always say, where's the flashlight going? Like, where's that flashlight shining? Are you shining in all the dark places that need light?
Yeah.
And are you ensuring that what's being presented is clear for anyone to understand? We need to make it so simple so everyone can understand where they need to be showing up in the way expected or in a new way that needs to be transformed.
I love that. And when I hear you kind of talk through the fact that you're managing different stakeholders and you're managing how they show up, that does resonate to me as stakeholder management. And I'm wondering if we can pause and talk through that bit. A large part of managing the project is stakeholder management. It's managing all the people that have a vested interest in that project being successful. And so I'm wondering if we can talk about your best practices for stakeholder management and how that might different when I'm leading a team versus when I'm managing the project externally.
Yes, for sure. So there is a difference between managing a project and leading a project, right? Remember, the key is leadership is sustained collaboration, and PMs are focused on execution. So that's your baseline, right? When it comes to managing your stakeholders, that's tactical, that's time bound, that's meeting stakeholder expectations, clear communication, and making sure all the deliverables align on time, right? That's managing. When it comes to leading, that's strategy, long term relationships, fostering trust, aligning team goals with the company vision. So, one is more boots on the ground, right? Managing is more boots on the ground, hands on, and leadership is high level, snapshot, stick to the description, and what outcomes are you trying to deliver, right? So, there's the difference, and it's a dance, and they often intertwine. But again, I think the key is answering questions in a timely manner. If you don't know something, say, I will get back to you. Let me research, let me ask. And no question is insignificant.
I love that. Yeah, I think there are the aspects of the leading part and the management part. And again, going back to what we were saying, that a lot of times you are doing both. If you don't have the luxury
Mhm.
of a project manager as a people leader, you have to do the leadership part, the collaboration. I love what you said. Can you say it again? Because you said something about leadership is it's sustained collaboration and then management is the execution. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
So first of all, I love that. I'm going to steal that and share that with every people leader I know because I want them to always understand that the leadership part, again, that is the part that a lot of us tend to focus on, but that execution part is so important because without it, your team can't be successful in what it is you're supposed to deliver for the organization. So
It's a simple way to remember, like, are you a project manager? Yes, because you have to execute this task.
there you go. And we all have tasks to execute. I always tell people, or it's not I have to execute or deal with relationships. I have to deal with relationships in order to execute. The execution also helps build relationships. That's why I love talking about the operational part of it because there's a balance. And one of the parts of it that I think doesn't always come natural to leaders in execution is the planning and prioritization of work. So now you have this project that your team has been assigned, and you have to figure out who's going to do it, when it's going to get done, what are the resources. If you were sitting next to me and I've started my first project, what would you share with me in terms of an approach I might take to planning and prioritizing the work for my team?
Understand first who your sponsor of your project is. Understand the sponsor, who is the sponsor, who is what some might call a steering committee, right? Who is championing this, who's asking for this work to be completed, who's on the hook to make sure that this work is being completed. Meet with them and make sure you understand the description of the program, the outcomes, the budget, the timelines. Then you start putting your team together, your project team, who's going to execute that with you. Well, you're not a decision maker, right? Project managers, we're not decision makers. Who are we going to support to help make this project get to its designated delivery date, in scope, on time, in budget? All risks have been avoided and all the fun stuff.
I love that. When I think about it, sometimes it sounds formal, but like in everyday life, the questions that you ask, right? A lot of times again, I think back to Year of the Manager and the scope, the deliverables. For me, that was, first of all, is there a budget? That's the important thing to know first, because it dictates whether or not I am going to use external vendors or develop it in-house, but also who is the key stakeholder and what is their expectation. These might be casual questions that we ask to our stakeholders to help us understand what the expectation is. And so I think what I'm hearing you say is before you start the project, make sure you know what's in and what's out. Make sure you know who has what expectation of what's going to get done and when they expect it, and how are you going to get people to help you along the way with whatever it is you're trying to deliver. Is that right?
Yes, you are correct. It is about understanding your role. You are not the one on the hook for the decisions being made. You are being held accountable to support the team to ensure that the decisions meet expectations, right? There's a difference. You should not make a decision for a sponsor.
Mm.
You need to ask, is this the expectation? That's why communication is important.
Mm-hmm.
We should never assume this is what someone might want. We can sometimes, depending on the company, depending on the expectation, depending on what's expected of you in your role, because sometimes that's a different experience for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a suggestion, right? You can make a
Mm-hmm.
suggestion to use as a tool or a point of reference to help make a decision based on your data gathered, based on previous meetings, based on tasks that have been assigned to other people. These are suggested focuses, keyword suggested, that the team needs to come together to assess, or the sponsors need to come together to assess to see if this is the decision that needs to be made or if this pivot needs to happen. We are
Mm-hmm.
data gatherers. We are the flashlight, shining the light in different ways for people to make sure that everything is visible to make the right decisions.
And so, with that being said, are there frameworks that help people to think about the roles and responsibilities that people should be playing in the execution of a project? You very clearly said if I'm the project manager on this, then really I'm a guide on the side almost, but I'm not necessarily leading it from the front. If I'm thinking about what my stakeholders might need or what roles different people play, what project management frameworks might help me have clarity as a manager and why?
Yeah, there's two that come to mind. One, a RACI, responsibility, accountable, consulting, informative, right? That covers everyone, identifying who is that RACI, right, for each work stream associated with the project, right? Be it, I don't know, for example, a network, or then you have someone from legal. It just depends, right? So
Mm-hmm.
each work stream, who do you go to? It helps you get that data gathering from the right person. Make sure that's in place. If anyone wants to learn more about RACI, just Google chart and you can get all the information. It's just a great go-to resource of who did you talk to? Well, this is who was identified as the responsible person. This is who was identified as accountable. So again, you as a project manager or program manager, it's not like you're freestyling, well, I think it's this person, or I think it should be this person. This is who is designated by the leadership team. So it just shows that you respect systems. Systems are everything. It shows that you respect the systems and you have a communication protocol that you honor. So that's awesome. And when it comes to agile, just being able to be adaptable, how you work with a team, and it can be a hybrid situation where you can do traditional project management or incorporate different pieces of agile, which I really appreciate, which is your stand up, which is your sprints, and just your retrospectives and things, best practices such as that support the agile framework. I'm a big fan of retrospectives, and I definitely like a good stand up that stays within the 15 minutes.
I love that. I struggle with those. I want to kind of just recap really quickly. So, the first thing I hear you saying is that if I'm new to this and I'm starting a project, one of the first things I want to do is maybe do a quick RACI so that I know who the stakeholders are and what do I go to them for. And there's accountability across how I'm going to interact with people. And maybe I share that so that we're all on the same page and people know what I'm going to be coming to them for or what I'm going to be coming to them to share.
Don't let that be an option. Let that be a mandate.
Okay, maybe it's what I should do for each project.
You share the RACI chart, because the thing is, you want communication to be open. And if you have it close to the chest, you're not sharing, you're limiting communication. Because what if someone's like, oh, well, maybe this person right now, they're focused on a different program or project. They don't have the capacity or the bandwidth. So let's let this person represent them and they could do that. So you want to foster, a RACI chart is a great way to foster open communication.
The RACI part was important, right, for me, because I feel like we don't often get the tactical part of make sure you start with a RACI, because that's not really hard for those of us that aren't formal project managers, but I know people will skip it. The retrospectives are important because if you're going to do something again, how did it go? I'm just trying to put it in everyday language for them.
You're fine. I think we're doing it. Okay.
There may be some people leaders out there that are new to the word agile. I'm wondering if you can describe what that is. I know it's really an approach, and then we'll talk through some of the terms you just mentioned and why they're important to how we might lead projects on our teams.
Agile is a project management approach focuses really on flexibility, collaboration, delivering value quickly, right? So it breaks work into smaller, manageable segments, often are called like sprints or iterations, right? Just two sprints running traditionally in 2-week increments. So 2 to 4 week increments, but primarily, right, 2-week increments, and allowing team to adapt to changes, and they continue based on the feedback that's given throughout those statuses, right? So you have your meeting and then you come back and then it's like, okay, we can pivot now, we can make an update now based on that. So it gives you room for real-time updates and feedback that you don't have to wait till the end of a project to make sure you get everything taken care of, right?
Yeah.
So this was originally developed by a software development team, and they had what is called the Agile Manifesto. If you want to learn more about it, please Google it. This practice is executed not only by project managers, but also Scrum Masters, product owners. And those are certifications that you can get through organizations like Scrum Alliance. And those certifications you can get in a weekend, which I don't know if people always know about. So if you want to get that information about understanding Agile, you can do that in a weekend if you want to get certified. Is it required? No, but does it help you as far as your validity of understanding and comprehensive understanding of what you're executing? So you can get your Scrum certification and take the exam, which is an open book exam, and then pass that, and you can take your product owner certification without having to take the exam. Once you become a certified Scrum Master, you can go through the certified product owner course. After you complete it, you don't have to take the exam for this product owner. You're certified because you're certified Scrum Master. That's right. I'm like, well, I try not to misinform anyone, but that is something that you can research. I just like to put it out there as something for people to research for their own understanding, because sometimes I think it's perceived that certifications in the project management industry are limiting, or they're all just like the PMP where it requires hours of studies and
Yes.
it's an application process. It's a
It's a
different
different way
journey
of
to get
doing it.
certified.
Yeah.
Right. And this certified Scrum journey is not PMP. It's two completely different entities, and you can get your Scrum on a weekend.
Okay. And that's going to help me just execute my
Pending passing
better.
the exam, just pending pass. Like I feel like I have to say all the things. Do your research. I'm just sharing information. This is
Yes.
not, I don't have an affiliation with Scrum Alliance or anything like that. I am Scrum certified, but I'm just sharing information that I've learned along the way for you and the listeners to research at your convenience for your own understanding. I feel like I have to give
Yeah.
all my disclaimers.
No, I completely understand that. The value of that is not necessarily because you want to become an external project manager, but just in your role as a people leader, it's going to help you execute your own projects better. You may not have the benefit of a Michelle who has been assigned to usher your project through. And so having some of these skills yourself really is only going to make it better for your team. And it's going to help you teach your team how to execute what you're doing a little bit better. So I want to talk about projects that you might have led, maybe some lessons learned to successful project execution. Can you think back to a really successful project that you may have had, and what was the key ingredient, or what was the part of the approach that made it all come together that helped it to be successful?
For me personally, it's being okay with not knowing the answer and asking for help.
Yeah.
When issues arise or a risk arise, I have to be comfortable asking for help, right? And oftentimes, leadership already knows you might not be able to answer the question because this is a new experience for you or a new project, or you might not be aware of the historical data that's impacting this. And sometimes they're waiting for you to ask them. The expectation is for you to come and ask them. So instead of what many people use the term squirreling, and like trying to figure it out themselves, sometimes you just need to ask for help, ask for clarity. And I think that's showing you are willing to do the same thing you're asking your team to do,
Mm.
communicate well, right? When you can demonstrate that you can communicate well by putting yourself in the position to ask for help and seek clarity and say, check in, do you need anything? I know we talked about this yesterday, but this is just a quick check in. How can I support you? Do you need to find anything? Sometimes people can't find this contract or can't find who was the person who led this. Can you find out? It was on their to do list, but they just hadn't communicated it yet. Just knowing that they can come to you and ask you makes a difference. Hey, just checking out. What are you doing? We're people working with people. How do you want someone to communicate with you? I'm not saying every communication is going to be rose colored and Zen conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but how we ask things will
Yeah.
always impact how that goes, right? It all goes back to the success of a project.
Yeah, just learn to be curious. Be curious about where people
Yeah.
are, what's going on, where they might be getting stuck, and approach it from a place of curiosity that helps open people up. I love that as a sort of secret sauce to making a project successful. Just be curious and aware of what's happening. Many managers think about keeping it on track, keeping it on budget, within scope. And I know that, like many of us, are juggling many responsibilities. So it's not just a project, there may be many things happening. We have ongoing responsibilities, we have unexpected challenges. One of the things that I am not great at and had to really develop is organization. How do you suggest that managers stay organized while leading a project and help their team stay organized?
If you have a PMO, follow the systems that your PMO is offering. Ask for PMO support, templates, use the documentation and the systems that were put in place to help you excel in what you're doing, right? Sometimes it's offered, sometimes someone might forget to remind you, but ask about existing protocols and systems that you can use that has helped others be successful. There's no need to freestyle. Does not serve you well. Use
Okay.
the systems. Use the system.
What if there are no systems? What if, again, I'm a small organization, you said PMO office, girl, we don't have one. What do I do now?
So what is a project? Like it depends on the company. Find out It's a very general question, but I just need some more specific, like what specifically are you referring to? What kind of company?
So let's say I'm a smaller company. I have, 500 to 1,000 employees. And again, I'm a people leader who is learning to embrace project management. And so I want to keep my team organized and think through. Because I think when you said the use of systems and processes, what comes to mind for me is make sure that you have something like a SharePoint or some place where information is centrally located. Those documents you have, if you don't have process documents, someone has to create them. So if you don't necessarily have someone who's going to help you with those things, maybe there's some steps that you can take to maybe get yourself organized for your project that could
I
help
think
you be
you just
successful.
gave
I've had to learn the hard way.
and that's a perfect answer to the question. SharePoint, using your intranet, talking to executives that have been here or other managers that have been there that might have some insight that could be able to help you. Tapping into your existing resource and asking them what has helped them or what has been a hindrance. If they can identify not only what's worked well, but if they can also identify hindrances, that's equally as helpful because it gives you a starting point. I know I need to make sure I get this covered. But it goes
Yeah,
back to communication, written in verbal,
I love it.
because that written isn't going to be in SharePoint or on the intranet.
Is there some Michelle Badie secret sauce, some project management tactic that you have adapted that's worked wonders for you over time?
I love to know people's pet peeves.
I wouldn't have guessed that one. So tell me more about that.
Well, I just want to know, what is your preferred communication? Do you like, sometimes people are very set in their way about their scheduling. They don't like to have meetings on Mondays, right? Or they don't like it when people don't acknowledge their message. So what does that mean? Not that you're ignoring them, but if you respond in a group chat, you read it, but you didn't say anything, well then, so you don't want someone to unintentionally be stirring because they don't have confirmation that you read their message. Just little stuff like that,
Yeah.
that what makes someone finding out what someone's definition of success is, so you can
Hmm.
make sure that you're contributing to that or acknowledging that as a point of reference when you're communicating, making sure that, hey, you mentioned XYZ as a point of area that you want to shine in. Okay, is this an opportunity to add more light onto that?
Yeah.
You as a project manager, I think one thing that sets us apart is that we're really good at seeing people through observation. So what we observe, good, challenging, and different, right? How do we use that information
Yes.
to help our team be strong and want to come to work, want to work on the projects, want to work with you?
It feels like that's a way for you also to establish team norms. Because when you said is acknowledged, it made me think of being in a Slack channel and someone saying something, and then the little eyeballs, people put the eyeballs on there. That just acknowledges that I saw what you said. Maybe I don't have anything to say, but it acknowledged that it was received. And that becomes a team norm of, okay, if something important is posted, we all know what this behavior means. It just means even if I don't have anything to add, it sounds to you like that curiosity about people's pet peeves helps to establish some team norms for how they're working together, which then ultimately helps with collaboration.
I'll be remiss to not mention the importance of honoring mental health and how project managers fostering a psychological safety communication path, right, within projects help support mental health, which supports minimizing pet peeves turning into something that irritates people. When you foster a psychologically safe communication with your project team, you're helping minimize some of that because people are going to be able to vocalize it proactively, not
Mhm.
reactively, after like what some might identify as poking the bear and you don't even realize you're poking the bear. So people can say, hey, when this happens, not really feeling this, but I would like it. I have reports due on a Wednesday. Can you get everything to me by Tuesday? Tuesday by noon? What adaptations do you have to do to make sure that happens? Do you need to meet with your teams Friday before going into the week so you can get these updates in and get a pre-read to them in advance so you have time to address any loopholes or information gaps that need to be filled before they complete their report? All of that is being represented in that effort to make sure someone's day goes smoother.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So, I want to do a recap for the listeners. If you're realizing that there is project management in your role, there is the thinking about the leading part plus the execution part. starting off strong with knowing who's on the team, what are their responsibilities, how you communicate with them, thinking through how you might then execute, learning more about agile, thinking about stand-ups, scrums, and retrospectives to help keep the project moving and be adaptable to different things that might happen, but also thinking about how you keep everything organized so that there's enhanced knowledge sharing on your team, so that everything either has a process or a place or a document that helps people know how specific aspects of the work is supposed to get done. And then also going back to some of the soft skills, ensuring that there's psychological safety, that people feel comfortable talking to one another, and that they are all gelling and want to work together, which I love that you said that. And so, just a final question, if you're thinking about from your experience, what is one piece of advice that you might give to seasoned managers to either sharpen their project management skills, or if they're just like, okay, I want to get better as a project manager, where should they start? What's the first step they should take immediately after finishing this podcast?
To piggyback on what you said earlier, staying curious. In order to stay curious, you have to stay in student mode, willing to learn, willing to be the beginner, willing to be the novice, willing to say, I don't know what I'm doing, or, oh, I need to get a better understanding of that. As we elevate our knowledge and our experiences and the more complex projects we lead, you're going to have to learn a new communication style or execution style, a new approach, an impacting process, different vendor communication needs, expectation needs. What does that look like? What are tools they need? Do you need to get a review of a contract? Things that might not always be said. And we just can't operate from a place of assumption. It doesn't serve anyone well. So just being willing to be a student, willing to learn from a personal professional development, put yourself in environments where you're learning from other project managers and program managers. What does that look like? Going to meetups, PMI events, Scrum events, online stuff. There are a lot of project management and program management professionals and Scrum leaders out there posting free events and activities on LinkedIn. And if it does require an investment, make the investment in yourself. Expand your network, expand your expertise, getting access to that. You are a worthy investment. Make sure you feed yourself with food of nourishment. Feed your mind. Don't be reluctant to make that investment in yourself. Set a budget. If you don't want to go to conferences, and commit to the Audible books. Sometimes you can get audiobooks through your library. So find the resources and just take that time. There's a lot of podcasts out there like this one. Invest in yourself. Take the time to invest in yourself.
I honestly couldn't have said that better. Thank you for that. I always tell managers, like some of us, we start from a place, managing people. It is that balance of relationships and results, and we are typically stronger in one area than the other. But if you're not super strong in project management and recognize that it is a part of your job, find a friend. We often have to borrow strengths from other people, or we have to figure out how to bring ourselves closer to center so we balance both of those areas. And it is worth the investment. I think our teams, they want to be engaged, they want to be happy. We were building engaged, healthy, and high performing teams. They want them engaged and healthy, but this is the part that really helps us to be high performing. When teams are successful and they can see their projects coming to life and going out into the world, that also feeds into their engagement because they can see their efforts being applied and utilized. On behalf of the listeners, I want to thank you because I learned a lot during this call. It honestly even reminded me of some areas where I can be stronger as a people leader when it comes to project management. If you as a listener have learned from this podcast, I would love it if you would share it with other people leaders who might need to also enhance their project management skills. Michele is often on LinkedIn and she shares wonderful tidbits about project management. A great way to invest in yourself is to follow her on LinkedIn. I will put her LinkedIn in the chat for you and maybe you can reach out and say hello. So, on behalf of Michele and myself, I do want to thank you for listening to the Manager to Manager podcast today. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.